Steve is in Detroit, and he is next. Hi, Steve.
How you doing? Not to be a Debbie Downer, but I just hear too much assuredness in this upcoming Lion season. I just want to caution people. Buffalo has been good for a while. Cincinnati has been good for a while. And they have not won the Super Bowl. I would challenge you to say Buffalo and Cincinnati are better than Detroit, and they still haven't won. You can look at San Francisco. Look how long they've been good, and they still haven't won. Let's temper this with a little common sense. They had a perfect year last year. Everything went exactly right. You reclaimed a quarterback who was on the scrap heap, and that worked out. You drafted a wide receiver in the late rounds, and that worked out. Drafted a tight end, that worked out. Drafted a running back. All these things hit. You know how rare that is, that everything you do hit, and you still don't win. So let's just
hold on, Steve. Let me ask you a question. You're saying you hear too much assuredness. Isn't the assuredness centered around them contending for a Super Bowl? Hold on, Steve. Isn't it centered around them simply contending for the Super Bowl? I haven't heard assuredness that they're going to win the Super Bowl. It's about, are they a legitimate contender? Isn't that the only assuredness? They're not. They're not a legitimate contender.
I just look at it as it's too much confidence. It's just too much. And another thing they got to change. They got to change that approach to coaching. Last year, you got a 17-point lead. You don't go for it. I don't care if the guy dropped the ball or not.
Right.
You don't go for that. You go back to common sense football. This is not Madden. You don't have a joystick in your hand. You don't go for it on every fourth down. I don't care if it worked in the regular season. I don't care that you had.
Did you hear what Dan Campbell said about that?
Yeah, I heard.
He evaluates every season and goes back and looks and might change things depending upon what kind of team he has.
I'm just saying, it just seems like we're fans. We've already booked our Super Bowl tickets, and
absolutely
we're
not.
Gonna beat everybody.
And we've talked about them being contenders. Steve, who hurt you in the past?
No, it's just I'm a Lions
why
fan
you hurt
forever.
Okay, so that's it. So it's why don't you want to just embrace what they are, which is really good right now?
Because they got to show me. 1 year doesn't show me.
Well, what about the progression to get there? To go from 3 wins and a tie to 9 wins and then to 12 and 2 playoff wins and an NFC championship berth.
I want progression. I want progression like what Tampa Bay had. Tampa Bay used to be.
So in the meantime, how are you going to watch?
Tampa Bay has became a good franchise.
So how do you watch? How do you watch the games this year? You're not excited?
I'm watching it with caution. I don't want to jump in with both feet and knowing the history of this team.
But why?
A good year, a bad year. A good year, a bad year. That's been their history.
Why?
That's been their history.
Why don't you want to jump in? Why don't you want to get excited about them? Why don't you want to be chesty about this team?
Because they're going to disappoint me. I know they are. They are never going to win the Super Bowl. That's my thought. They're never going to win the Super Bowl.
So here's the thing. The biggest mistake you're making, in my opinion, and you can feel however you want about them, you are arguing that people are too chesty about winning the Super Bowl when the only arguments that seem to be made, and I can't imagine don't have validity, is that whether or not they are contenders to win the Super Bowl. Do you think they are a contender to win the Super Bowl?
At the beginning of the year, everybody is. But we're
a legitimate contender.
A
legitimate contender.
On what I said every year everybody is.
I know, but not everybody's a legitimate contender.
Did you think last year Houston was going to do what they did? Did you think that?
Steve,
no one did.
Here's the question. Do you think the Detroit Lions are a legitimate contender to win the Super Bowl?
Not win it. I think they're a legitimate playoff team. I think we're going too far to say that, definitely they're going to the Super Bowl.
That's not what we're saying.
Nobody's saying that. Do you know what the word legitimate? Do you know what the words legitimate contender means? They have a realistic shot to win the Super Bowl. That's all. Do you think they have a realistic?
I don't believe.
All right. Well, then there you go. I mean, I mean, the one thing that I feel very comfortable in saying that is this isn't simply a Detroit-centric thought. The Lions are widely considered a legitimate contender to win the Super Bowl? And of course, we don't know. Of course, every year there are surprises. But we're talking about the percentage chance that the Lions are like they've got a real legitimate shot to win the Super Bowl. This isn't fantasy. We're not hoping and praying.
If you ask anybody who are the top 4 contenders in the NFC, top 4 contenders to win the NFC, you will hear Philadelphia, San Francisco, Detroit, and I don't know who else, actually, because Dallas is a bit of a mess right now. But those are 3 legitimate contenders from the NFC. And if you win the NFC, you're playing for a Super Bowl.
We haven't had one call of anybody that has too much assuredness, or one text. Have we gotten one call or text that with anybody with too much assuredness that they're going to win the Super Bowl?
No, I'm looking to see if any Martin is online, and I don't see one, so we're okay.
Well, there was the one Martin who always thought they were going to win the Super Bowl. But, yeah, this is about contending. Are they a legitimate contender? And I don't think it's out of bounds. We talk about the guardrails. We put up guardrails and try and stay realistic. We're not crashing through guardrails thinking they have a shot to win the Super Bowl. We're crashing through guardrails if you think the Tigers have a shot to win the World Series. That would be crashing through guardrails.